Today, I'm going to be talking about creative problem solving. But first, I'm going to start with a question to the audience. Raise your hand if you love egg rolls. All right, that's wonderful to see because I love egg rolls too, and I've loved them ever since I was a young girl working at my parents' restaurant. So I would come to my parents' restaurant every day after school and on the weekends, and I would take takeout orders, I would pack takeout orders, and I would cash guests out, as well as eventually wait on tables. In all those years of doing that, I saw thousands of egg rolls being ordered and served. But during the 1970s, Chinese food was not as prevalent as it is today, and so my parents could not simply order egg rolls from a distributor. We had to make them from scratch. So I saw our kitchen staff making the filling from scratch, chopping the celery, adding the shrimp, making Chinese roast pork from scratch and dicing it and putting it into the filling and rolling up those egg rolls. And when that batch of egg rolls would get into the sizzling hot oil of the deep fryer, you could just smell that amazing deep fried goodness in the kitchen. And I love that smell. And I would ask my dad if I could have an egg roll. Now, my dad was a bit grumpy. He was a traditional Cantonese dad. And when I would ask him that question, he would look at me and say, "They're deep fried, not good for you, and those are for Americans." And I would be a little upset, and I would take my little American-born self and walk back up to the front and pout a bit. And I would still have to take orders for all of our guests for egg rolls. And, one day I thought about it, and I said, why can't I be a customer? Why can't I order an egg roll? So I took out that green ordering pad, I wrote myself an order, and I went on the intercom, and I said, "Ordering to go, 1 egg roll." I waited about 5 minutes, went to the kitchen, and grabbed my egg roll in my hot little bag, and I rushed back up to the front. I was triumphant. I sat there in the front, and I took out that egg roll, and I took that first crispy crunch. It was the best thing ever. I got to enjoy that egg roll without anyone telling me that it was deep fried, that it was bad for you. No one side-eyeing me, no one shaming me. I felt like I had it all figured out. So I continued to order 1 egg roll for myself every day. And on the 6th time that I did it, and I went back to the kitchen to go get it, my dad came up to me and he said, "Who's ordering 1 egg roll every day?" And I just said, "I don't know," and I scurried back up front. That egg roll was not as enjoyable. But I knew he knew that something was up. But I did learn a lesson. I learned that I could get what I wanted with a little less friction, and that answers weren't always black or white. They weren't always a yes or no. So let's fast forward about 15 years when I co-founded Sweetwater's right here in Ann Arbor. I knew as part of my entrepreneurial journey that I would face lots of challenges. One year, though, as we got to fall, I had a much larger challenge. How was I going to compete against this? And their very large push for pumpkin spice latte. I decided I did not want to follow my competitors' footsteps and just come out with another pumpkin drink. And I thought about my experience, and many of you are Michiganders here. What do you do in the fall? Where do you go with your family every fall? Cider mills, that's right. So I did the same thing with my family. We would go enjoy cider and donuts, pick apples, and get the occasional caramel-covered apple. So I wanted to bring that experience into our cafe. So I took cider and I steamed it nice and hot, and I added a little bit of chai to it and put a dollop of whipped cream and a caramel ribbon. And that became our spiced caramel apple. Now, I did not want to ignore the popularity of pumpkin, but I also didn't want to just simply call it a pumpkin spice latte or a pumpkin latte. I wanted a more unique name that was more personal to me. So when I was young, I loved Charlie Brown. Charlie Brown, Snoopy, Linus, and I used to watch all the Charlie Brown specials. And during the fall, it's the Great Pumpkin Charlie Brown. I would always watch that. So that's what I decided to name our pumpkin drink, the Great Pumpkin Latte. Because like in Charlie Brown, everybody is waiting for pumpkin season and waiting for that pumpkin to come. But unlike Charlie Brown, the Great Pumpkin Latte would actually land within our cafe. And so for over 30 years, those two drinks have been our standard drink every fall, our spiced caramel apple and our Great Pumpkin Latte. Now, challenges can also come from those closest to you and or within your inner circle. So we've always celebrated Lunar New Year because we are an Asian-based brand. And we normally celebrated it as a featured drink that every fall around, not every fall, January and February, right around the Lunar New Year season. And about 7 years ago, I wanted to do something a little bit different. I wanted to bring something a little bit more tangible to our guests. I thought it would be fun when I think about the experience that I had at my parents' Chinese restaurant when you go there and there's that placemat that has all the Lunar New Year animals on it. And that still exists today. When you sit down at the table, what do? You look for your animal and you find out what your brother's animal is, your sister, your mom, your dad, your girlfriend, your boyfriend, and you have this conversation about all the characteristics of your animals. Are they a match? Do they dislike each other? All kinds of fun things like that. I wanted to bring that experience into our cafe. And so I presented the idea to someone close to me about having Lunar New Year glasses in these 16-ounce pint glasses. And I was met with challenges. So this person said, why do you want to do that? We don't serve drinks in pint glasses. And pint glasses is that's what you see in bars. We're not a bar. And when bars give away pint glasses, it also seems a little cheap. Doesn't seem consistent with the brand. So I heard that, and there's nothing worse than telling me no. So I thought really hard of how I was going to counteract each one of those challenges. And I decided to design a custom icon for each of the Lunar New Year animals. And for the first 4 years, that was pretty easy. We had the ox, we had the tiger, the rabbit, and the dragon. Those animals were either cute and furry or bold and strong. But then we got to the year of the snake. And when I say snake, I'm imagining most of you think of this. Think of something dark and ominous, dangerous, poisonous, totally unappealing. So I thought, how am I going to counteract that? I thought about an experience that I had right here in Ann Arbor at the Leslie Science Center when they had a reptile demonstration. And I had the opportunity to hold a yellow corn snake. Now, I was a little hesitant to do that. However, I just sucked it up and I said, okay, let's do it. And it was a very, very large snake. And it wrapped around my hand and it was very heavy, but it was super calm and it was actually quite beautiful. And I thought, I'm going to lean into that experience and lean into the beauty of a snake. So I had the snake icon designed to wrap around the glass because that's an attribute of the snake. And then I printed it in 14 karat gold to elevate the design. And I was really happy to see when we launched the Year of the Snake glass that it came into our cafes and people were just as receptive to that glass as all of our other glasses. There was no negativity, no asking us, why do you have a snake, or I don't like the snake. So we were really happy with that. And this is our 6th year of having Lunar New Year glasses. This year is the year of the horse. And we decided to bring all those other Lunar New Year glasses back to make a 6-pack. We did that because we had so many guests asking us, I missed that year, can I get that year? And people wanted to commemorate different milestones that happen in those years, from graduation to a wedding to maybe a birth of a child. It wasn't just about the year that you were born. So the unintended consequence of these glasses has been we get orders from states like California, Florida, Virginia, places that we do not even have cafes. This has extended our brand way beyond any of our cafes' 4 walls. So I never fail to remind the person who brought all those challenges to me how successful these glasses have been. But at the same time, I do need to be thankful to that person because I don't think I would have worked so hard to make these successful if it weren't for those challenges. Sometimes challenges don't just come from outside, they might come from within. And a couple years ago, I went to visit a friend that owns a coffee roastery on the West Coast. And after the tour of his roastery, it was beautiful, I visited his coffee bar and I ordered a specialty cold brew drink. And this drink, I fully expected to share this with my travel mates. But when I took that first sip, it was amazing. It was a beautiful combination of cold brew coffee and chocolate and a just rich, creamy mouthfeel. I didn't share that drink. I drank it all. And I was determined to come back to Ann Arbor and reverse engineer that drink and bring that to our guests. I did, and I tried. I tried for about a month, and I could not get that exact same flavor that I had in my memory from just recently. So I got a little frustrated, and I wanted to be kind to myself, so I decided to put that on the back burner. During that time that it was sitting on the back burner, the auto industry was coming out with a new paint color for high-end, premium cars, sports cars, and it was a matte paint finish, and in particular, it was matte black. And when I heard that, I thought, matte black, that would be a really fun name for that drink that's sitting back there if I could figure it out. And about a year later, I took that drink off the back burner and I said, I'm going to figure out this recipe. And I took what I remembered and I decided to reinvent it into something new. So I took our cold brew, which is a beautiful cold brew with a natural sweetness. And to amp up that coffee flavor, I took a fresh pulled shot of espresso. And because I love full fat creaminess, I put a layer of heavy cream on top. And then I broke a cardinal rule of my own. I brought in an ingredient that would only be used for one drink. I brought in a deep, dark chocolate cocoa because I love dark chocolate. And I layered that on top. And I tasted that, and it was amazing. I had our baristas taste it. I had some of our regular guests taste it. And we said, okay, we're going to go forward with this. And we're going to name it our Matte Black Cold Brew. So the next step after that is I sit down with my marketing team, and we brainstorm on how to launch this drink. As we were sitting there, and I was talking to them about this Matte Black Cold Brew, I said, it would be really funny if we could find somebody named Matte Black. As those words came out of my mouth, I started on my laptop Googling, and lo and behold, there was a Matte Black right here in Ann Arbor. We contacted him. He was totally game. So he put together a really fun social media strategy. We put posts out, we videotaped him. He was a wonderful ambassador for the launch of this drink. And I'm happy to say that this was one of the most popular, most successful drink launches that we had. So much so that we have featured different variations of this drink in different flavors. So sometimes rules are meant to be broken because that deep, dark cocoa is now used across several drinks. So when I talk about creative problem solving, I'm not talking about being artistically creative. It's how you accomplish your goals. How do you compete against a Goliath? How do you handle conflict? How do you reinvent a solution? How do you take your experiences, your background, your passion, your culture? How do you take what makes you, you, and incorporate that into your solutions? I hope I've given you some inspiration today as you approach your next challenge. And I hope that you too can either find, or better yet, make your own egg rolls. Thank you.